the board is out of the synth again, and I now need to remove this number 6 voice module, which shows signs of having a dry joint or a bad joint, which means when it's warm it works fine, when it's cold it doesn't. So if I can just get this lined up with the camera again, we'll go back in with the desoldering iron and pretty much repeat what we did originally to get it out. Because the solder's new and fresh, I don't need to re-tin the joint. There's still enough residual flux in there, and the solder's nice and non-oxidized, so it's easy to work with. So, a couple more of these. And that should be ready to come out. There's a little bit of a meniscus on some of them. You can usually tell which one's released if you can wobble the pins, but these all seem to be free anyway. Okay, so that's now just dropped out. So again, no damage to the holes, no heat stress to the board. So let's look at this baby. Somewhere on here is the cause of all this trouble. Now, I'm going to try something here. If I hold this magnifying glass up to the camera over the lens, I'm hoping, how's that? You should be able to have a very close-up look at what's going on this board. Now, you can see that the solder legs there look okay. They've got what's called a solder fillet behind them, where the solder has risen up along the back of the leg, forming a boot. That's what you need to look for. That's a good joint. And again there, spot the difference. Look at that leg there, the top one, the second one down. You notice how the others are nice and shiny, and the one there is very dull and crystalline looking. That is a classic bad joint. Usually means the joint was moved while the solder was setting, but I don't see how that can. Well, that must have been an original bad joint from the factory, and the actual physical disturbance of removing the casing has possibly annoyed it. So that is most likely, or at least visibly, the most likely culprit on there. And you notice how hard it is to see with the naked eye. Would you spot it? I suppose you can. You can now you're looking for it. That's always the issue with these things. Now, if I look at this with the magnifying glass to my own eye, that does look pretty bad. And there is what looks to be like a hairline crack where the leg hits the board. Now, the way to get around this, if you just hit that with a soldering iron, all you'll do is turn that into a sort of a cheesy, gloopy mess. So what you really need to do is hit it with solder flux, which will stop it. Will aid it to flow. Will help it flow. Will also help it to overcome any oxides that are on either surface, and it will also mean that it's far less likely to actually bridge any joints any proximal joints. So what I'll do, and this raised an interesting question actually. I've heard various rumours as to why these chips have failed, and none of them really. They all seem a bit far-fetched. The capacitance, the resistance. What no one's actually mentioned so far is that some fluxes, when they age, can become conductive. And you can end up with, I mean, it depends what flux you're using. The modern fluxes are okay. They don't really cause the problem. But some of the older ones did cause issues. And if they're left for a long period of time, they can cause conductivity problems on the board. And interestingly enough, if you look at what's in the jar, the acetone has gone a bit of a yellow colour. And I'm wondering if that is actually flux that's been taken off the board. Because if I look at the remains of the coating, once the acetone has been removed, they go incredibly stiff again. The whole flexibility of that when I was peeling it off is totally gone. It's now very rigid. So I'm wondering, I don't think the actual acetone changed the the composition of this. I'm just wondering if the acetone has stripped off any old problematic flux, thereby removing the problem. So, I don't know, your guess is as good as mine. Is it this stuff that's become hygroscopic? Is it causing capacitance? Is it resistance? Or is it the old flux on these boards that was kept in place by this? And the act of removing this with the acetone also strips the flux off, thereby removing the problem. Now, because this is so tiny, I'm not going to attempt to solder this on air, as it were. I want this camera out of the way so I can get down really close and work on this. Plus, I'd need about 4 hands to hold that magnifying glass up to the lens again. I'm quite impressed by how well that worked. Yeah, not too bad. So, okay, I'll solder that and I'll see where we go from there.